Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guess, fires, throws, does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another one! Another one!
Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke, bounces into Cody, puts it up, scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, no Jim Coyle right now. He'll be with us shortly. Right now, it's John, the producer, here to get us going here with Kevin Brockway. Welcome into Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Southern Stone Restaurant and Andy Moore Honda. Man, a big day yesterday for Indiana football. We've got Indiana basketball playing against Wisconsin tomorrow at the Kohl Center. A lot of stuff going on. Obviously, Kevin Brockway with us, as he is every Tuesday. How are you doing this morning, Kevin?
I'm doing very well. And new offensive coordinator news, obviously, the big news of the day yesterday with the hiring of Walt Bell, the former UMass coach.
Yeah, Walt Bell. The first thing that came to my head yesterday whenever I was trying to figure out an opinion on the hire was that just underwhelming. I don't know that you can really have any sort of expectations after what you dealt with Nick Sheridan this past season. You feel like you can't go anywhere but up, but at the same time, it still feels like something that could have been a little bit more of a sexy hire, I think.
Yeah, and, he does have Power 5 experience. We'll give him that. Now, did he have great success? Not really. Maryland, Florida State, those are two big jobs. Obviously, it looks like the connection with Tom Allen is Arkansas State, going back to 2015 when he got his start. And it looks like that he's had some success in some running offenses, but Indiana, if they're going to make their bones in Big Ten play, it's going to have to be through the air because of their lack of physicality. So you would have liked a pass happy guy, maybe. I know they're talking about the guy from Western Kentucky who went to Texas Tech. His name escapes me.
Zach Kittley.
That would have been, I think, a much sexier hire. But I think right now, you've got Walt Bell and you've got to make the most of it. And you got to hope that maybe Tom Allen sees something in him that the numbers don't see, because you don't see those glaring statistical numbers with him in terms of, leading a high-powered offense. But, Kalen DeBoer was a little under the radar and came in and did an excellent job. And look at how he's risen. He's got hired.
There's a big difference, though, between Kalen DeBoer's past success before Indiana and what Walt Bell has done before Indiana. You've also had a lot of people complaining about how, because of the ties to Tom Allen and previous staffs, that this is another loyalty hire. I don't know that I would categorize it as a loyalty hire. I think it'd be more of a familiarity hire is maybe a better term for that. But I can also see where some people might be a little aggravated. But at the same time, I feel like with the recent, decline of the offense, this isn't the job that had the attraction that it did when Kalen DeBoer was here, when you could have gotten somebody maybe more prolific. So you're kind of having to settle a little more for something that you probably would have been able to get more out of in previous seasons.
Yeah, and I think the fact that, Michael Penix, entered the transfer portal the day before maybe had something to do with that as well, because that was one of those, that would be a selling point, right? You get to coach Michael Penix. Mm-hmm. Now you're left with Jack Tuttle. You're left with Donovan McCulley, Dexter Williams coming off a torn ACL, Josh Hoover decommits yesterday. So you really got three quarterbacks to work with. You've got some certainly some good, the running back situation is a little dire too, and they're going to have to keep recruiting.
Yeah, we've already seen success in the transfer portal so far this season. Tom Allen's dipped back into Ole Miss for a couple defensive linemen. I know more people are wanting to see more of the offensive pieces come in the transfer portal. I know there was Emory Simmons, a wide receiver from North Carolina, who decided to come to Indiana. I think it was a couple days ago. But, they're definitely going to need to figure out what's going on in the quarterback room for sure, and the running back room, or else you're going to be dealing with a running back room full of walk-ons again, plus Jabron Payne, the freshman, and then a questionable quarterback room where you don't know if Jack Tuttle really is the guy. Is Donovan McCulley going to be ready? Is Dexter Williams ever going to play a factor in the quarterback race? And then it goes back to the fact that we lost Josh Hoover. So, a lot of people say that Josh Hoover that his decommitment had something to do with the Walt Bell announcement yesterday, because it coincided. They both kind of made their decommitments, and then Walt Bell's, announcement, even though it wasn't official. All the reports came out yesterday. A lot of people said that coincided with each other, but Josh Hoover spoke with Jim yesterday, Jim Coyle, saying that it didn't have anything to do with Walt Bell, but he had been in talks with TCU's new staff, and that's where he committed pretty much almost immediately after he decommitted from Indiana.
Yeah, and, closer to home for Josh Hoover. And then also, Josh Hoover was recruited by Nick Sheridan, so I think there was probably a loyalty there as well, that they had a previous relationship. But do you keep Nick Sheridan for another year based on one quarterback recruit? Probably not, based on the results that were shown on the field this past season with the offense.
Kevin, what do you think? And I guess it's pretty hard to tell this early. What would the expectation for somebody like Walt Bell to be in his first season? Because I feel like as long as you can find some way to improve upon what this past season was, maybe develop an offensive line of some sort, obviously score more touchdowns through the air, you're looking at some sort of improvement. You may have a completely depleted roster. We don't know.
Yeah, and I think too, John, what's he going to do with Darren Hiller? I think that's a big question.
Yeah.
Is he going to keep him or not? And how are they going to develop that offensive line? Is that offensive line really going to get any better? How is it going to be developed? I think that's the big question, because it really starts up front. The quarterback injuries have coincided a little bit with that. Can Jack Tuttle stay healthy? He's a new question mark. Before it was Penix, now it's him. He seems to be getting hurt every game. There seems to be a issue with his health. So I think those are things that you've got to evaluate. You got to decide, and you got to figure out. When you look at Indiana's schedule next year to start the season, it's a lot more manageable.
Yeah, I think the first 6 or 7 games, I would say, I've looked at the schedule previously, are a lot more manageable than the back half. And I do know that there is a stretch at the end of the season. I think it might be the last 4 games where you have Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, and Purdue or something like that, which is a pretty ridiculous stretch. But
you open with
rack up those wins. Oh, go ahead.
You open with Northwestern at home.
Yeah,
So.
If there's a lot of people aren't fans of starting the season with a conference game, but if you want to start a conference game with any opponent, it would be Northwestern at home, I feel like.
Yeah. Northwestern having almost as bad a season as Indiana did this past season after having a great 2020, which is interesting.
Yep.
They kind of coincided in terms of both falling off the map. So I think it's just, it's going to come down to, this offseason. I still think it's a good 2022 class across the board. I'm telling you that Desan McCullough will be an interesting guy. I mean, he might be a guy that's going to see the field early on defense. He has that kind of ability and that kind of talent, but I think it's a good class overall, the 2022 class, and you're just gonna have to build off that and hope that some of these other classes that Tom has got up, some guys develop and get better.
Well, there you go. Football side of things, lots of news from yesterday. I'm sure there'll be more to go as the week goes on. We'll hear from Walt Bell surely in the next couple of days, and we'll be able to have some insight from that. Also on the basketball side, Indiana goes 1-0, beating Nebraska over the weekend. They travel to Madison, Wisconsin to try to get their first win in the Kohl Center since 1998. We learned this yesterday, Kevin, from Charlie. Charlie Miller was on the team, the only team that ever won in the Kohl Center, and they opened it up that season in 98.
That's interesting, yeah. But the Kohl Center is I've been there a couple of times. I covered a Florida game there back in 2013. They kind of stick you up in the rafters seating-wise.
Really?
By the hockey press box. Yeah, you're kind of way up there. It's a beautiful building. It really is. It's almost like a modern NBA-style arena like Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It's what we would call it. Florida, Indiana always seems to get off to kind of slow starts there, shooting the ball for whatever reason. But and they got off to a slow start against Nebraska. I think that's going to be one of the keys. The last 2 games they've gotten off to very slow starts. On the road, you're going to want to get off to a little bit of a better start against this team. Wisconsin is one of those teams that you thought may take a step back in the Big Ten, but you look at them, they haven't. Johnny Davis is scoring the ball. Davison is playing very well. So it's gonna be tough. Another game on the road and second time in the last 3 games, and you hope that maybe they learn some things Indiana does from the Syracuse game. I know Mike Woodson on his radio show yesterday was talking about the Syracuse game and the fact that they threw that 1-3-1 at them, and they were a little thrown off by that. So Wisconsin, it'll be interesting to see how they attack Indiana defensively, if they throw some different looks at them, and how Indiana will adjust to that. Certainly that I think the encouraging sign in the Nebraska game was that, Trace Jackson Davis did not have one of his better games, but other guys stepped up around him. Race Thompson played well. Tamar Bates off the bench played well. You want that second unit. Anthony Leal is starting to get some time. He's starting to play a little better. Giving them something, assists, scoring, 3-point shooting. So I think the depth that Indiana is starting to develop will play well in the Big Ten on the road. And the defense has got to be there, obviously, and that's the thing that they're going to have to hang their hat on, because they're not an overly explosive offensive team. This is a team that's going to have to win on that end of the floor, I think, to have success in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I would say it's defense, avoiding turnovers, and bench production is going to be the 3 keys for Indiana to continuously have success, whether it's the rest of the non-conference schedule or throughout the rest of the Big Ten season. Those are the things that they seem to either excel at or the issues that they need to fix as the season continues.
And Mike Woodson also on the show last night, he had an interesting take on foul trouble too. He talked a lot about, just wanting his team to stay aggressive, and he's going to kind of live with the consequences there. He would rather them play overly aggressive and really get after it on defense than the alternative, which I thought was interesting because, Xavier Johnson is one of those guys that's so valuable, though, on the floor, and you want him to be on the floor because of the fact that, you've got Finney and you've got Lander, but Xavier gives you that scoring element, the point guard, that those other 2 guys don't give you on a consistent basis. So it's kind of a yin and yang with that, especially with Xavier. And that was his MO at Pittsburgh, and it's followed him here. He plays, he's a very aggressive guy. So I think you're going to have to live with the good and the bad with that. I don't think Mike Woodson's going to rein him in at all, though. Mike Woodson wants him to be at the front of the defense, really harassing these guards and giving them a hard time.
I made this comment about Xavier Johnson the other day during the game, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with this observation, but for some reason he reminds me of Aaron Kraft, at least defensively, because he plays so hard that it's like he fouls on every play. And that's why he's been getting in all this foul trouble early on. I don't know if he's necessarily the elite defender that Aaron Kraft literally was, but he definitely gives off that same kind of aggression on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. And sometimes in the Big Ten, it's the same thing with holding in the NFL, right? You're not going to get holding. They're not going to call holding on every play. So with Xavier, it's maybe they're not going to call those hand checks on every play. So you might get away with one here or there, but there's got to be a balance to it, I think, though, too, because he's so valuable on the offensive floor. He is their best offensive guard by far, and you want him in there for that production and his ability to blow by guys. It's just an interesting kind of dynamic. But Mike said last night he's not going to rein him in. He said he's going to let him play his game, play aggressive, and hope that they can adjust.
Yeah, especially because your other 2 point guards, you have Rob Finney, who seems to be fairly inconsistent so far this season. You have Christian Lander, who had a really good game against, I think it was Jackson State. But again, it's Jackson State. Christian Lander's still young. He's got to get his feet wet. I think he'll be a great point guard down the road. But when you're 3 deep on guys who could really be starting for other teams, that's a good thing to say about this team, I would say, so far, even though there are inconsistencies with each one.
Yeah, and, the Syracuse game, both Finney and Xavier fouled out, right? So you were left with Lander in overtime. And Lander had a big
came up with a huge – I cannot believe the clutchness that I guess Christian Lander was able to have at the free throw line, and then be able to pull off the purposely missed free throw to get Trace Jackson Davis the rebound. And then eventually the game-tying free throws. That was wild. Yeah,
that was a big play. He hit a 3-pointer in overtime. He also, that last play in the first overtime, I think he started it a little late. And then also, had the foul at the end of the game, obviously, that led to the 2 free throws. So there was some good and bad there, but it was a learning experience, I think, on the road that you hope will carry over into this game up in Wisconsin.
Yep, plenty to look forward to. We'll be continuing to talk about this. We've got Mike DeCourcy coming up. Hopefully, Jim will be here with us shortly during the break. I'm going to try to get a hold of him again. Obviously, those of you who were with us or who were with me before the show last week know what happened, but we'll see if we can get Jim back on with us. But you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant. We'll be back with Mike DeCourcy and more after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
All right, let's and I gotta pull up bump music too. That's another thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm pulling double duty. Got to get all this stuff taken care of at the same time.
No, yep.
Do you have something that you could? I mean, I know we talk regular basketball with Mike DeCourcy, but I'm sure Jim normally has his. I feel like he normally knows what he's been up to and all that kind of stuff. And
We could talk about the Steeler Raven game.
I'll let you lead that conversation. I didn't watch any of that.
Yeah. I watched most of the second half.
All right, got music. Let's give Jim a call.
Did you watch the Buffalo Patriots game last night?
No, but I was on here with Keegan training him on some stuff, and he was telling me about all the wind and the punts and the kickoffs and stuff.
Mac Jones only had 3 pass attempts the whole game. It's crazy. Wake up!
He woke up on his own eventually on Thursday last week, which was around 9 o'clock, which is what I'm thinking might happen this time, but we'll see.
Does he have an alarm clock or no?
He should.
Please leave.
My goodness. At least we don't have somebody like Kyle Neddenrip on. I know nothing about the Indiana high school sports scene.
Yeah.
Let's see. Grab the other. Pull up some Big Ten scores from the past couple of days. I know Illinois beat Iowa last night.
You see that Florida lost to Texas Southern?
No, really?
Southern, yeah. It was the first time in, I think in.
They hadn't won a game yet?
Yeah, it was. I think it was like the first time in like 40 years that a unranked team beat a top 25 team by 15 or more points or something. Or an Owens.
I was hoping Mike would join before we got back from break, but here we go. Hey, Mike, weird situation this morning. We don't have Jim, so me and Kevin are taking the reins, but
what does that mean? You don't have him?
No, he's good. He's not answering his phone. This has happened before.
Oh,
it's a mess, right, Kevin?
He's in witness protection right now, I think.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. John Alden with you this morning, waiting on Jim Coyle to join us here shortly. Kevin Brockway with me as always as well on Tuesdays. Also joined by Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News. Mike, how you doing?
I am doing well. Apparently better than Jim. I'm just guessing. But the difference between he and I right now is I'm here. So
hopefully Jim will be joining us shortly. He has a habit of oversleeping sometimes, but we deal with that in ways that we can. Kevin and I were talking in the break about the crazy NFL game last night between the Patriots and the Bills up there with the crazy punts that were going every which way, and Mac Jones apparently only had 3 passing attempts. I'm not sure if you caught that at all, Mike.
I did. I saw at one point, must have been in the early to mid fourth quarter, that the Bills were able to penetrate deep, but weren't able to to get all the way to the goal line. So they tried a field goal, and it took a hard right turn. I did see that. So it was pretty wild. Playing football in the wind can be an adventure for sure.
Belichick's game plan worked, though. I mean, it was amazing how he, especially, when the wind was against him, he just kind of ran every play to shorten the clock and then get the wind with him in the second and the fourth quarter. And it ended up working out. And Josh Allen, even against the wind, made some pretty good throws. He's got a strong arm, but it seemed like every time they got in the red zone, they just stalled. They had those 2 drives, the one missed field goal, and then the one at the end of the game where they just couldn't get in the end zone.
Yeah, it felt like the Belichick oddly had a better plan for the circumstances than the home team. And I think that Sean McDermott has some answering to do about that. Now, obviously, they're not a very effective running team, at least not relative to their passing game. And I did think that there might have been some more opportunities to put Allen on the move than they used. That he's certainly dangerous with his legs, and I thought that they could have done more to utilize that than they did. Belichick is the best in the business, and anybody you measure against him in terms of ability or history or whatever is going to come up deficient. But on a specific basis, individually, I mean, it's your home game. You've got to be ready to go in that game.
I agree totally. And I think that, that early Breida fumble, I think really hurt. They did catch the break on the punt, and they cashed it immediately on that to tie it was 7-8, and that 2-point conversion that they went for early in the game turned out to be really big. And they converted on that. And I think a lot of that had to do with, obviously the conditions. They didn't even want to kick the extra point against the wind early in that game after they got the rushing touchdown. It turned out to be a really smart move.
Yeah, and again, it shows that he's paying attention to the circumstances. Why bother to try to kick an extra point that you might not be able to convert when you not only can run a play that is more likely or at least as likely to succeed and that conveys more points? It's playing the percentages. And strangely, when Buffalo scored the touchdown that would have technically matched it, Buffalo chose to play the game as if it were a normal game. And okay, well, we don't want to chase the points that early. Well, it's not about chasing the points necessarily. It's about playing this game. This game is not a normal game. The wind's going as much as 50 miles an hour. That's not normal. You have to be, there may not be another score in that game because of the circumstances. So you can't allow yourself to be down a point just because you're playing the convention of not chasing points that early.
Agreed, totally. You're wearing your Steelers shirt, and you talk about a goal.
I thought I was down low enough you couldn't see it, but
we saw it earlier. But at the end of the game, you talk about going for 2. John Harbaugh obviously went for 2. He tried to go for the win at the end of that game. It didn't turn out, and the Steelers are still alive and well in the playoff hunt because of it. Your thoughts on John Harbaugh's call and the overall Steeler performance in that game on Sunday?
Yeah, I thought the Steelers showed a lot of spirit in that game. That they had several players again down because of injury, but they were very fortunate that Cam Hayward, who had been ill on Friday and unable to practice, was not COVID, but it was some sort of bug or whatever. He was not able to practice on Friday, but was able to go. And then TJ Watt had to clear virus protocols. They never, they don't always have to say whether or not someone has it. But he played the prior Sunday and then played this Sunday. So he must have been more of a close contact issue, but he did have to test negative a couple of times in a row in order to play. And he was able to play, and he was the difference in the game. I mean, if they don't have him, they have almost no chance. He winds up, I think, with 2.5 sacks, with passes defensed because of blocks. And then, of course, the altering of the Lamar Jackson pass on the 2-point play to Mark Andrews that he had to throw too quickly and too hard and was basically out of the tight end's reach. And I heard someone on Monday suggest that was a catchable ball. And my response was, well, maybe if Willie Cauley-Stein had stuck with football and you had a 7-footer out there, he could have reached out. But I mean, a normal size tight end is a big human. But a normal size tight end could not get that ball. I do not put that on the catch. I don't really put it on Jackson either, because if he doesn't rush that, he probably gets either the ball gets deflected or he goes down. So he had to throw what he did. It just didn't work because of Watt getting on him as quickly as he did and being as effective in his pressure as he was.
We're jumping over to Big Ten basketball last night. Sorry to switch gears on us so quickly, but you don't want to ask me too much about the NFL before you start getting into stuff that what I'm talking about. I don't always pay attention to the NFL, but Big Ten basketball last night, Illinois defeated Iowa 87-33. It really seems like the Fighting Illini are really coming back into form after struggling in the early part of the season. Kofi Coburn had 17 points and 18 rebounds. Mike, were you able to catch that game last night?
I think that you're seeing a team that's starting to develop some significant weapons, without a doubt. Andre Curbello's absence is a factor. His performance early in the year was a factor in why they struggled. I don't know exactly why he played as he did, but he clearly did not play the level of basketball he's capable of. So now he's out and trying to heal or whatever. And in the meantime, Illinois is doing a really nice, solid job of getting the basketball where it needs to go. Trent Frazier's doing a terrific job as a stand-in point guard. So is DeMonte Williams. They're kind of sharing the duties there. Neither is truly a point guard, but they're capable of they're both veterans. They're both seniors or super seniors or whatever, and they know how to play. And then, of course, Alfonso Plummer has been an absolute revelation. Transfer from Utah. He's been a great addition to them, shooting the basketball from 3-point range. While DeMonte is having to do so much to help keep the offense afloat in terms of its operation, they're getting the chance to really develop Alfonso. And Trent Frazier's hitting from deep, and they're getting the threat from the perimeter that they hoped for in Jacob Grandison. And then Kofi, I think there's still several pages of his influence that haven't been explored. But from the standpoint of rebounding the basketball and being a presence underneath, he's been fabulous.
Mike, your thoughts on Purdue being number one in the country, first time in program history? It's pretty amazing. You think Rick Mount, Joe Barry Carroll, Glenn Dog, the big dog, Glenn Robinson, all those eras, Carson Edwards, never been number one. And this is the team. This is the time with Matt Painter for them to be the number one team in the country.
Yeah, I am a poll agnostic. I refuse to vote in them, and I pay very little attention at all. I pay almost none. As a matter of fact, the only reason I paid attention to this was because I was up at Mackey last week, and there was a lot of buzz about whether they would finally be ranked number one. I wrote about it, and I wrote essentially that, hey, if you want to enjoy this, go ahead. I'm not, whatever, it's fine, but it doesn't really mean much. And what really matters is what happens through the course of the Big Ten season, whether you add another Big Ten championship banner to their vast collection. And obviously, even more important, what they're able to accomplish in March. And this is a team that's capable of reaching the Final Four, maybe even capable of winning a national championship. And that's what really matters for these guys. And what a vote in December. I looked it up. I think the last five you had Gonzaga obviously was number one on December 5th of last year. They made the Final Four. They made the championship game. But the other four did not make the Final Four. Two of them made the Elite Eight and lost. Two of them lost in the second round. So it's quite clear that this doesn't convey any sort of long-term success. It's up to you to then go and take the team that's capable of being ranked number one on December 6th and then actually go out and do things on March 6th and April. Yeah,
and the interesting thing to me in watching that Iowa game on Friday night, and I watched the full game, is just that little second half run that Iowa made and the guard play, the pressure. Is that something that we're going to see other teams do? And is that Is that kind of their kryptonite, you think, in terms of, just getting on their guards? Now, I know Thompson was hurt and Hunter was just having a hard time getting the ball up court. Could you see other teams replicating that? And could you see that as being something, if there's a weakness in Purdue, that's it, and you attack it?
Well, I mean, if you were looking at Purdue's historical weakness, you go back to the 2016 NCAA tournament when Arkansas Little Rock and Chris Beard pressured them late because they needed to. I think they were down 12, 5 minutes left, something like that. Got to try something. So they did, and it worked, and it produced a victory for Arkansas Little Rock in that game. And Purdue, a very capable Purdue team, went home. And then there was an occasion, probably the following season, when Purdue was pressed hard by Iowa, and I don't remember what the ultimate result was, but there was a scene similar to Friday's. Maryland then went in that same year and did the same thing. And so there is that concern that if there's a weakness there, that they need to get better at press breaks. And I think that's something that if I were Matt, that I would spend maybe, some of the time during the Christmas break when there aren't as many games and there are many more practices because there's no class and all that. And you have the ability to literally do unlimited practices if you want. Maybe to spend an additional segment or 2 or 3 or maybe even a whole practice on just pure press break, because for one, it's also a good conditioning workout for everybody involved. But spend a lot of time on that because look, this Purdue team's going to be ahead of a lot of people. I mean, they're going to be way ahead of a lot of people. And somebody's going to say, a lot of people are going to say, well, the only way back into this game is if we press. Because we're not getting enough possessions if we just go end to end with these guys. So we got to press and we've got to try to get it going. And as a result, they're going to see that a bunch. Not necessarily out of, they're not going to see a lot of teams turning themselves into St. John's or whatever, or Marquette, play the havoc game. They're not going to see that, but they're going to see those late pressures like Iowa used because of that disparity in their ability and everybody else's. They're going to have some, quote, fourth quarter leads they're going to have to protect.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, Jim Coyle is going to rejoin us. We're going to keep talking with Mike DeCourcy about Big Ten basketball. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
The Pro College football.
Welcome back, Jim.
Welcome in.
All right.
What's up, Barry? You look like
How long is the break?
ready.
I'm going to go downstairs and
minutes.
get some cough drops, because I was coughing a little on the air.
Yeah, I noticed Kevin was having a little coughing fit earlier.
Ricola.
Y'all ever see My Name is Earl? That's what I always think of whenever
Ricola.
You've heard that?
Have you seen it on My Name is Earl, the show?
No, I've heard about it, though, yeah.
I used to watch it all the time.
This is the first thing I ever watched on Netflix was My Name is Earl.
What does that have to do with this conversation?
He has cough medicine, Ricola.
Ricola, baby. It's the best.
They use Ricola on My Name is
No,
Earl?
so one of the characters in My Name is Earl would say Ricola. It was like one of his catchphrases all the time. I don't know why he would do
Really?
it, but he did. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if it was a catchphrase, but he did it in a particularly funny episode.
Man, what's
Can
her
I
name
get
was
the
in
phone
there? She
number
was
on your
hot.
MyBitSI account? You can also go.
Hey, Mike, we got 1 minute just to let you know. Jim, just to let you know, we already touched on NFL a little bit, and then we were just getting into Big Ten talk, obviously. We haven't talked about Indiana yet, if you want to get into Indiana, Wisconsin.
Well, no, the thing I missed most of all was Letterman on Manning on last night. I didn't.
Oh,
I
he
missed
was
that.
great. Yeah.
I was so disappointed when I saw. I was like, "Oh my god!" He was on there, and I missed that. And I didn't have it recorded.
All right, here we go.
Or how about a brand new 2021 Honda Passport? Also 0% APR financing over 48 months and $0 down. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. Mike DeCourcy, Kevin Brockway, leading the charge here. I missed David Letterman on Eli and Peyton last night, and I am so disappointed because that had to be. Did anybody see that?
I saw a little bit of it, yeah. And they were talking about Eli was upset that he didn't get to do those stunts that Peyton did, throwing the ball through the taxi window and stuff and everything like that. And, it was pretty funny. I think people about some of the stuff in Peyton places, like raising the goalpost for the field goals and stuff. And everything.
Did you see that episode? That was funny.
Yeah,
that's worth the 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it was, because it's just Letterman is just hilarious, and then you've got Peyton, he's funny, but when you get a guy like Letterman with him, oh man, it's like Abbott and Costello.
Yeah. And Joe Buck was pretty good too on the fourth quarter. He was pretty funny.
I did see him. Mike, how are you doing, man?
I am doing very well. I actually saw the first segment, and it was pretty dull. There was some funny stuff about David Letterman that they talked about whether he played football, and he said that he played hoops, and that when he was, I think, in 9th grade or 8th grade or something like that, somewhere around in there, that the football coach came to him and asked him if he would want to be a football player, because he was about 6'2", and he said, what would I do on a football field? I weigh like 140 pounds. And they said, well, we'll make you an end. They think they wanted the tall target out there for their quarterback. And he said, the coach said, he said to the coach, I think I have a little problem with claustrophobia and wouldn't be comfortable in the helmet. And the coach supposedly said, "You're afraid, aren't you?"
Oh man, I just love it when those guys get together. But right now in college football, the transfer portal is going crazy. Of course, everywhere coaching changes. Indiana is one of those schools that has been hit with that. Man, losing Josh Hoover, that's a blow to Indiana. Kevin, I don't know if people realize it as much. I think it is. I think that he's really going to be a special player.
Yeah, and he's going to TCU. Obviously, that's a little bit of a unfortunate. We discussed that earlier in the show, but they're down to 3 quarterbacks, right? And Dexter Williams is coming off a torn ACL, and I think losing Michael Penix, certainly was a blow too over the weekend. So you're left with Jack Tuttle, Dexter Williams, and Donovan McCulley right now. You're only 3 scholarship guys on the roster.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got in Michael Penix a guy who was 4 season-ending injuries. I don't know if you're losing a lot with. I know he's a tremendous athlete, but it just seems like it's not meant for him to be able to play quarterback. And it's sad. I hate that for him, but Mike. But man, when you see a guy who's 4 years that it's happened, I don't know if I hate to say that you're not losing a lot, but you're not losing a lot as far as production in that regard.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to, especially at that position, because you're building your entire approach around a particular player's skill set. And if he is unable to complete each season, every season is disrupted as a result. And that was certainly true a year ago when so many things were going so right. And of course, Michael unfortunately was injured, and they were never quite the same after that. And then that lingered into this year as well, because he did not appear to be quite as effective or confident as he'd been a year ago. And we see that a lot in any level of athletics, that a player comes back from injury, and because he's available, everyone expects him to be the exact same player. And also because he or she, I should say, and also because we've seen some, maybe even many, that have been more or less the same player. But it doesn't mean it's universal. It doesn't mean that athlete is automatically going to be back to the same level of confidence and belief and trust in one's body and all those sorts of elements that are required to excel at sports. And people get frustrated with that. But look, until we have sports that are entirely robots, I mean, that's part of the deal, that athletes are going to come back and sometimes they're not going to be the same. So that happened with Michael, and that affected this year without a doubt. And I can understand any Indiana fan or any Indiana player or coach that feels like let's try it with somebody that we don't feel like is going to be gone 4, 5, 6, 7 games into this season.
Take a look at his record, though. The record of the team, though, with him as the starting quarterback compared to without, I think it's 13-5. He had a way of elevating others around him that the other quarterbacks didn't. I think that's kind of my point.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to find that kind of guy again that's going to be that kind of guy. Absolutely.
And my statement is not a dismissal of what he accomplished or was capable of, but it's hard when you have that continue to happen year after year. Like I said, everything that IU was this past season was built around what they expected him to be able to do. And when he was no longer available to do it, and honestly, before he was unavailable, wasn't playing at that level, it affects everybody. So yeah, you have to find somebody who's capable, but they don't necessarily need to be capable of doing what Michael did. They need to be capable of doing really good things on a football field, whether it's just running an offense or throwing deep or whatever skill set they might bring to the position. You have to have someone that's high level and then is available to you, and then you build around that, and then you hope that you have that player for 12, 13 games, unlike the situation you had with Michael.
And we've seen the offensive coordinator Nick Sheridan let go. I'll be honest with you, I was shocked that was the only change made on the staff, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. And people say, well, sometimes maybe there'll be more changes. Why wait this long if there are other changes coming? Or are they waiting till after the early signing period? That doesn't make sense. So I don't know that other changes are coming, but it's just a little shocking, Kevin, after how bad the season was offensively and how bad that they were, that was the only change.
Well, I think what they might be doing is waiting for the offensive coordinator to see if the offensive coordinator is going to make changes on the staff. I think that's, whether that's
which would be a departure from what Tom Allen has usually done. He usually kind of controls that and says, well, we want you to do this. Like when the defensive coordinator came in, well, you need to run this defense, which is kind of different than the normal.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see if that's the way they go. But there could be some, like I said, we'll see what the offensive coordinator decides, if he decides to want to retain some of these staff members or not.
Yeah, we'll see if he has that kind of portal power. Looking at the word portal there. On the basketball side, things are going okay. Mike Woodson had his show last night. He is just. There's just no other way to say it. I don't think that I've ever been around someone who is more comfortable in their skin and more comfortable in what they are and what they're doing than he's doing. It's just he doesn't get rattled. He's not going to get emotional. His emotions are not up and down. He's just the same all the time. And that is a great thing as a coach. But it's just amazing to see because most people, I can't do that. My emotions are all over the daggone place. But he is just so even keeled. And that's what makes coaches great. And that gives them the ability to make tough decisions in tough moments because their brains or emotions are not all over the place. And he's one of those guys, man. He is just here, doesn't move. Mike, I know you've been around guys like that a lot throughout your sports, but he's one of those people.
Yeah, I think that's who he's always been. And probably even as a player, I saw him as a player. I didn't know him as a player, but if you followed him through the NBA, that's who he's been all along. And I also think there's an element of when you're in your 60s and somebody hands you $5 million a year or whatever it is he's making, that you can be pretty comfortable for. You can be pretty comfortable then. You know, you don't have a lot to lose. I mean, you want to win because you're a competitor, and he certainly is, but you don't have a lot to lose. So you can the pressure on others to build a career isn't on him. He wants to build a team. He wants to build a program, something that can excel while he's there, that can endure after he enters retirement, whenever that is. And I'm not rushing him into it, but it's out there. I mean, Mike K's leaving in this year at 75. We'll see others Roy Williams left. I think he was 72, 73. So it's a ways away for Mike, but it's out there, and he can just sort of just do basketball and do the right things. And that's what he's done ever since he's gotten there. As I said before, he hasn't made a false step yet. He hasn't made a bad step. And I think even if you look at the Syracuse game, as frustrating as it was for them in that first half, the adjustments made at halftime, they got back into that game against all odds. I mean, to be able to get back into a game against a team that restricts possessions as much as Syracuse does by playing that zone was a remarkable performance. And even if ultimately there was some disappointment because they didn't shoot free throws well in the overtime, because they failed to execute on the overtime final possession, the decision by Christian Lander to get across the midcourt line and stop. That was frustrating, but it's also an opportunity to learn from that experience for Christian and for the 2 point guards who were watching. Okay, this is what you definitely don't do when you've got 10 seconds. You don't stop. The ball has to continue to move, because once you stop, everything that was planned in the huddle is gone. And they still tried to run the play after that pause. And you could see there wasn't enough time to run it. The play was set up for, okay, now continuous motion, got to get right into it. And when he paused, okay, that play was gone. At the point where he paused, he should have abandoned the play. But he can learn from that, as well as Robert Finney can be reminded of that if he's never been in that circumstance. He's played 80, 90 games. He probably has, but you don't know for sure whether he's been in that precise circumstance. Xavier Johnson, I can tell you, because he was at Pitt, he was not ahead in a lot of games. So again, although he was not the one with the ball in his hands on that play, I'm sure he was paying attention, and I'm sure he saw what broke down there.
Yeah, how many times have we seen coaches like Calipari and Billy Donovan back in the day in those late game situations? They just spread the floor and they tell their point guard to make a play, and I don't know if Indiana has that kind of point guard, but that's the value of having that kind of point guard, right, Mike?
It is. I think the part of it, though, also in that situation, Kevin, was because the Syracuse plays the zone, it's harder to do that.
Yeah.
It's hard because no one's going to go with you. You can spread the floor. That's okay. They're still going to be where they are. And so it's a little bit harder. But I don't know why Christian stopped. Maybe he saw a look that was slightly different than what he was anticipating, whatever. But that was a fatal mistake, as they called them. You can't. You have to go into the play. And again, if the circumstance necessitates that pause for whatever reason, if you go into the play, you're going to turn it over. Okay, but you can't then run the play because there wasn't enough time to do it. So, like I said, they're not going to go undefeated. So they lost one game on the road to a team that's probably going to be a tournament team. it's not going to damage them significantly, but it will damage them if they don't learn from that. And that's what everybody involved, particularly the 3-point guards, have to know the next time they're in that situation.
Yeah, the learning that's going on is it seems apparent, and that's how he is coaching, and hopefully that will provide big dividends for them. As I'm looking at one of your latest pieces, we can't not talk about Purdue ascending to the number 1 spot for the first time in their history, which they're a really good team. And I thought that they may get there last week, but Duke beat Gonzaga and jumped over them. But they hung in there, and now they're number 1 for the first time. They have a really good team. They're probably the odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten. They have to be. Michigan is up there, of course, but it's going to be a battle. The statement I heard from Juwan Howard, I reposted yesterday. It was great. I can't read it on the air, but someone asked him about defending the Big Ten title, and he goes, "Man, that SHI, that crap was last year." He said everybody is going for the Big Ten title in 21-22. And he's right. He was like, man, that don't matter. He goes, everybody's coming to fight right now. And so he's taking the right attitude, but it's true. There's just you got a Purdue team, and you got other teams under them that are fighting, but should be a great year to Big Ten, actually.
I think it'll be very interesting. The Illinois, I still think, is going to be right there involved in this pursuit. Andre Curbelo has to get healthy, get back, and get back to being who he's capable of being as a player. The season did not start well for him, and he's been absent the past several games. But when he gets back, it will make a big difference. And in the meantime, they're getting Kofi Cockburn more established. They're getting tremendous perimeter shooting from Alfonso Plummer, and so they're going to be a real threat. Purdue's number 1 ranking is a nice thing, but I'm not going to invest a lot into it. I wouldn't prevent any Purdue fan from celebrating that. It's something that they have never done, so it's nice to do it. But they haven't been to the Final Four in 41 years, almost 42. That's what they want. They haven't won the national championship ever. That's what they want. They have won many Big Ten titles, but it's always good to add to that list. Those are the things that really matter. They're real consequence. They're real achievements. Being the number 1 team after 7 games is just kind of nice. It means people think a lot of you, and they think a lot of Purdue because there's an abundance of excellent players on their team. They've got 2 centers who literally could play for anybody in the country, and for all but maybe 5 teams. When you say somebody can play for anybody in the country, what you mean generally is if you took that player, he could remove whoever's there, and that team wouldn't miss a beat, so to speak. But in the case of Zach Edey and Travion Williams, there are only about 4 or 5 teams that would not throw their center aside to take those guys, either one of them. And obviously Illinois wouldn't, Michigan wouldn't, but there aren't very many that wouldn't say, okay, we'll get rid of our guy if you give us Travion Williams. We'll get rid of our guy if you give us Zach Edey. And they have both of them. So that's an enormous asset. Those 2 guys, they can play with abandon, not worried about, gee, if I get into foul trouble, my team might lose. No, if I get into foul trouble, I got another All-American right behind me. A guy who, if I weren't here or he weren't there, one of the 2 of them would be an All-America candidate. That's very rare. And now at the point guard position, they have 2 similarly talented players, differently in what they are best at. Eric Hunter, more of a defensive player first. Isaiah Thompson, a great shooter. Neither of them is a star point guard, so to speak, but it's nice to have both options. Again, not having to worry much about foul trouble, knowing those guys know how to play if one of them is absent or in foul trouble, whatever. It's a great asset to have. However, it also can be a detriment because it makes it harder to find out who are the 5 guys who absolutely need to be out there when the game is on the line. Who are the guys that what's the right combination in that circumstance? Who do you want out there when you're trying to protect the lead? Who do you want out there when you're trying to when you're going bucket for bucket? Who do you want out there when you're trying to rally a little bit? Those are all harder answers to find when you've got so many options. Other teams basically have to figure out how to do those things with the 6 or 7 guys that can play for them and play at the level that they're at. In Purdue's case, they literally have 9 or 10 who can play in any circumstance, and they have to find out what works best. That's an extra layer of challenge for Paint that other coaches don't have.
Is the Purdue piece your latest piece?
Yeah, and I also wrote a column yesterday about a football coach who was coaching up the road until about a week ago, Brian Kelly. Bashing Brian Kelly was last week's favorite sport on Twitter. It was relentless. It was in some cases kind of funny when he had his little Southern twang.
You mean Brian Kelly
speech at the LSU hoops game? That was kind of funny, and so some of it was fun, but some of it was over the top. And the reality is, by the end of the week, the number 4 team in the country, according to the college football invitational playoff rankings, it was Cincinnati, and the number 5 team was Notre Dame. And the reality is that if Brian Kelly hadn't been at Cincinnati 15 years ago, 12 years ago, Cincinnati would be nowhere near where they are now. He basically invented that program. Now, Luke Fickell took it to another level with what he accomplished and deserves all the credit for that, and we'll get plenty. But if there were no BK at Cincinnati, there would be no Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. It just it wouldn't be. And Cincinnati would not be on their way to the playoff. They would not be on their way to the Big 12. It wouldn't be. And when I covered that, I don't know if I ever told you guys this story, but when I was in Memphis and my mother-in-law became ill and my wife expressed a desire to move closer to home. Oh, it would have been nice to have been back to Pittsburgh. That wasn't available, but I had a couple of job offers, both at the same time in Cincinnati. One was at the Cincinnati Post. One was at the Cincinnati Enquirer. Cincinnati Post, I kind of knew wasn't going to last forever, and I didn't know how long I'd be in the newspaper business. I didn't know I was going to end up at Sporting News 4 years later. So this Enquirer I knew was in it for the long haul, so I wanted that job. But I also wanted to use my leverage a little bit. So I said, I've been covering football and basketball for 15 years. I haven't had a day off on a weekend from September to April in my entire career. So I told the Enquirer that if you wanted me, I didn't want to have to cover any football. And they said that was fine. We'd send somebody else to cover the football team. Fine. Well, then some things changed around after I'd been there for 3 years, and they said, we want you to cover football. And I'm like, yeah, but I have a deal here. And they said, but this is what we'll do. You only have to cover the home games. We didn't even go on the road with that team. That's how inconsequential Cincinnati football was. That was 20 years ago. Within a decade, they were selling the place out. The games I covered, there were 7,000 people in the stands. Nobody cared. Nobody called the paper and said, how come you're not covering this team? Nobody cared. And then Brian Kelly comes along and completely re-energizes it. And he basically, he didn't invent Notre Dame football. I mean, Knute Rockne did that 100 years ago. But he reinvigorated it. They had gone from Bob Davie to Tyrone Willingham to the
Weiss, yeah.
Abbreviated George O'Leary. Don't forget him. And then Charlie
Tommy
Weiss.
Tuberville. Don't forget Tommy Tuberville.
No, I'm talking about Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
That 4-coach span where nobody could get anything going. And then he comes along, and they're in the BCS title game in 2012, and they make 2 college football playoffs. Last 5 years in a row, I think it was, double-digit wins. So again, like you can look at Brian Kelly and say he's not the greatest guy or whatever, but yeah, he's been a really effective football coach, and he is hugely responsible for the college football picture being what it is right now. at Notre Dame and at Cincinnati. And, people think that LSU is going to be harder job for him because the league is better. What they forget is that LSU's won championships with Les Miles and Ed Orgeron, two guys who, neither one of them is at Kelly's level. I can say that with no reservation at all. Les was a B+ at best college football coach, and that's maybe being generous. And Orgeron got fired 2 years after he won the thing. So what does that tell you? Brian Kelly is an A-level football coach, college football coach at all levels, recruiting, the whole deal, coaching. He's really good. And so there's no guarantee he's going to win a national championship at LSU, but he's got a way better chance of doing it where he is now.
They've got great athletes down there too at LSU. They stay in the state of Louisiana. He's going to have his pick of the litter there in terms of athletic talent. And 9 times out of 10 they stay in the state.
And it's easy. It's an easy reach across the border now. It's obviously a great competition. There's a lot of people want to be in Texas. A lot of people want to be in Florida, but there's great proximity for them in Baton Rouge to go into Texas. They can cherry pick a few players from Florida. Don't have to go very much farther than that, and you've got a heck of a team.
Yep. Make sure you give Mike a follow at TSN Mike and the Sporting News, where you can find all of his great material and the latest up there that we were just talking about. Mike, I can't thank you enough, man. Anything else they need to know about that we haven't hit on?
No, that's about it for now. But we'll be back with more good stuff next week, and it's great. I'm glad you were able to show up before we got out of here.
Me too. Glad to make it. You guys have a great one, or you have a great one. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.
Thank you, Mike. Hey, we're back with more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants. If you're in the market.
So I told John this, I got to cut out at like 10, because I have a doctor's appointment. I got to get to at 10:30. So
you'll just have the last segment by yourself.
10:10. You going to the lumberjack doctor?
Yeah.
The lumberjack doctor? What do they do? Split your spine in half?
Yeah.
They check your bark.
You like this shirt, huh?
See, it doesn't fit where you're from. Being the New Yorker that you are, flannel seems very out of your.
Oh, they New Yorkers wear flannel to be cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was a Seattle thing.
No, we. This is Calvin Klein, actually.
Oh, see, there you go. That's how you know.
See, see.
It's probably like
I promise you
$250 for that one shirt.
You know, I do not have a single flannel anything shirt.
Yeah,
I have one flannel button up, but that's it. Looks very similar to what Kevin has on, but I think it's a little more maroon than it is red. Oh, man. So did you oversleep? Is that what it was?
No, just couldn't get here on time.
Did you not get my calls?
Yeah, I don't know why that didn't.
Because it didn't go all the way through, or it didn't send me straight to voicemail.
See, I don't.
I mean, thankfully Kevin was here this morning, because if it was a situation where I didn't have a co-host like last time, I probably would have done what I did last Thursday. Oh, by the way, I have some good news that we can discuss later.
Yeah, what's that?
I'm not going to be off for as many days as I originally thought next week.
What you told me yesterday.
Did Did I? Well, I have the actual. I have everything laid out until January 15th. Now they released everything for that long ahead. And I talked with Keegan last night when I had him on, and he's good to cover all the days, which is fantastic. Here we go.
It is. Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday. Hope you're doing well. Last night, Illinois and Iowa. How about that game, Kevin? Illinois goes on the road and gets an 87-83 win over the Hawkeyes. Illinois kind of fighting back now from that season opening. They weren't at the top of their game. They're kind of coming back.
Well, yeah, they've got Kofi going now, and he's back from the suspension, and they're starting to figure it out. And another tough one for the Iowa, but they look like Iowa and Wisconsin are two teams, right? We thought could take a step back this year, but I think they're both playing pretty well. So it's going to be an interesting. Rutgers is the program that's really taken a step back, big time in the Big Ten, and. Indiana's going to be battling for those, top 8 spots in the league, and Iowa and Wisconsin, I think, are going to be in the mix there.
How about Iona, Rick Pitino's Iona team? Iona. I'm talking about Iona in the, what are they in the MEAC or something? Probably.
The MAC. Yeah, MAC, yeah.
They're the MAC?
MAC, no, Metro Athletic MAC, 2 A's, yeah.
Oh. I was ready to come in and do that. It's like a sheep.
Oh, man.
Metro Athletic Conference, yeah. Metro Athletic Conference. Yeah.
Oh, hey, Chronic.
Yeah.
Hey, brother, how are you, sir?
I'm doing excellent.
Just getting ready to talk about Iona. Rick Pitino's Iona team beat Alabama. Alabama beat Gonzaga last night.
Yeah.
How about that?
It's a mixed up, messed up, jumbled up world right now, and you gotta love it. It's the best part about college basketball.
Yep,
it is. I see. That's the thing about college football that you don't get. I love this. I love those mixed. It's like, oh man.
How about? I got a good one here. Okay, 0-7 Texas Southern beat 20th ranked Florida 69-54 by 15. Previous worst record by any team that defeated an AP ranked opponent was 0-3 Louisville in 1980.
Wow.
Crazy. Shout out Metro Conference.
Yeah, look at Chronic throwing out some old school. Heck yeah, man. Metro. Man, those were the days. The Metro Conference.
Yep.
I can't even remember who I was in. Louisville, Cincinnati, and Memphis were the 3 stalwarts of that league. Those were some great rivalries there.
I'll tell you what, man, the Metro, when you look back, it was the world's greatest incubator for corrupt programs.
Memphis in there back in the day or no?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Louisville and Memphis were like the 2 head-to-headers. Absolutely.
All they were missing was SMU, and they'd have the Thanos of corrupt programs.
Keith Lee and Memphis, they were the only team other than the 3 Big East teams that made the Final Four that year in 85, St. John's, Villanova, Syracuse, or St. John's, Villanova, Georgetown.
I think so. Chronic, how's it going with you, brother?
It's going, man. It is going. It's officially winter, man. It's cold outside right now. It's that weird period where we still got some kids left here for another week and a half, I guess, before winter break sets in. And, you talk about weird things in college basketball and how quirky it can be. This is the witching season right now. I mean, it's where you see things like what you were just talking about. It's those games that sneak up and just jump on teams. And, everybody's got to be prepared to go out there for 40 minutes every night. And now you got this weird twist with the Big Ten in full, starting early, kind of dip our toes in it here for a couple of games before we finish out the cupcake season, at least for IU. It's one of those. I was just talking with some folks over the last week. It's that time of year where you got to watch yourself because losses like we're seeing, especially when you've got perhaps a suspect strength of schedule, can be hugely consequential come Selection Sunday. Hopefully IU is able to survive Syracuse. IU fans need to root like hell for Syracuse for the remainder of the season to pull that SOS up, to get themselves in the tournament so that loss doesn't look as bad as what it perhaps could. But just highlights the importance of every night coming out and giving your best, because you never know. You never know. And we've seen it plenty of times in Assembly Hall. I thought we were going to see it again here, where you let a team just go off. And if you don't get your stuff together, man, not only does that sting in the short term, but those things can come back and bite you in the end. So looks like they figured it out at halftime. Now, if they kind of like the women's team, honestly, they need to figure out how to get that mojo going in the first half.
Absolutely. On the football side of things, a lot of things are changing. Ross put this up. This is kind of a Texas offensive lineman on scholarship. Each will get, I heard this yesterday, each will get $50,000 through NIL. Each offensive lineman is getting $50,000 through the NIL at Texas. That's a system that's going to be hard to beat for teams. Now, that's what they're going to have to do to compete in the SEC. But you look at teams like Indiana, and it's going to be really difficult to compete if you have teams in your league like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State that are more successful. If they're able to do that, man, that's going to start leaving some teams behind within big conferences.
Yeah, this is the arms race of the future for sure right now. And it's certainly concerning when you're looking from IU's perspective. The curious case of a school that's willing to drive an armored truck up to Brad Stevens' house and give him a blank check to come here. And, then we start pulling out the coupon books when it comes time to paying the football staff. So, if the boosters aren't willing to pony up for the coaches, we'll see how IU's able to compete when it comes to landing the talent that's going to be looking for those deals, looking for those checks. But it's a terrifying prospect that it's just going to be a straight cash grab. And people have accused the sport of becoming that, albeit under the table for years, if not decades now. But this is all being done on top of the table now. This is being done in plain sight, where, the boosters that previously had to employ the bagmen, now they get to stand next to those recruits with those jumbo checks in hand and put their name on that purchase. So we'll see what the future holds for smaller schools like Indiana when it comes to the college football landscape. But it's a brave new world ahead, and go get that bag while you can for anybody that's in the mix. But it'll be real curious to see how the next decade looks after these trends really entrench themselves in the sport.
Chronic, I find it interesting that boosters paid Archie's $10.1 million buyout, and Tom Allen had to take Nick Sheridan's buyout out of his own salary, $600,000.
$800,000.
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time, your decisions have consequences, and you're going to get stuck paying for those. Love them or hate them. That's just the way the world works. It's kind of rare to see it done that way. I would love to get the relevant parties on record and explain how that was decided. I doubt we ever will, but I'm sure those were some fascinating discussions that led to that ultimate choice. But at the end of the day, too, man, I mean, come on, how much did that man win or make for 2 wins this season? He can afford it.
Yeah. Great comment. I forgot Florida State was in the Metro. How about that? I forgot about that.
Break out to Google now.
I forgot about that. I was like, daggone. Yeah, there was some because the Metro Conference, we're going back and forth, but the Metro Conference was not viewed as a great conference back then. But man, it had some big teams in it. But yeah, the arms race is continuing. Indiana is at a crux right now because forget the arms race. They're just trying to get their own house in order right now with coaches, with recruits, and all of that. So that makes it even more difficult when you're trying to get your own house in order while everyone else is building basically building on to what they already have.
Yeah, and this is a wild year for sure with the coaching carousel, with so many big jobs opening up, and just the seismic impacts those shifts will have across the college landscape. I said it last week. I'll continue to say it. I'm going to continue to have confidence in Tom Allen. He has previously built a really, really potent staff. It's not so much hiring, it's retaining right now. You can make a very solid argument that perhaps he swung and missed on Sheridan, at least as OC. I'm gonna hold my tongue for a little bit until proven otherwise. I am really curious. I was talking with Galen Clavio, Dr. GC, yesterday. They've got a pod coming out where they did a deep dive on this. So I'm anxiously awaiting a listen to that later today, and perhaps color some of those opinions in a little bit. But at the end of the day, the proof's going to be in the pudding. This is really easy to judge success in this sport. Everything's measured, everything's counted, everything goes up on the scoreboard. And at the end of the day, I'm less concerned about the splashiness of the name as I am just the results that it produces. So it's going to be a while before we get to see those results, and we're going to get some early feedback based off what you see from recruits and current players. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But, let's make no bones about it. This is a hire that the football staff absolutely cannot afford to miss on because with a lot of the talent coming back on defense, and they've got to find their way as well. I think, getting off the field a little bit more is going to do them some favors. But at the end of the day, they got to figure out a way to score some points, and they're going to have to do it in relatively short order before next season starts.
And I think with the defense, the takeaways, the dramatic drop in takeaways was concerning, and maybe not having Tywan Mullen and some other guys in the secondary that were banged up all season. Reese Taylor had something to do with that, but only 9 turnovers forced after they were in the 20s last year in less games. I think that was a big factor too in IU's demise.
Yeah, and it's those game-changing plays. Big-time players got to make big-time plays. Takeaways are absolutely huge, but sometimes it's just as simple as a third down stop, getting the quarterback in the dirt. And, Micah McFadden continued to shine on the defense. I'm kind of waiting with bated breath to see what his decision is going forward. But right now, I can't imagine that kid's stock getting a whole lot higher when it comes to his draft prospects, just because he's been about the one consistent thing on this defense for the last 2 years. But that too could leave a massive hole right in the heart of the defense from your defensive leader that they may have to account for. So lots of stuff, lots of high risk, high reward in this offseason for the football.
Absolutely. Chronic, can't thank you enough as always, man. Anything you got coming up you need to mention?
I'll tell you what, man, I literally, just as I was jumping on, I hit send on the Christmas card order for this year. Always one of my favorite times of the year. We'll see if I can't spend some time this morning and put together another plan here to try to show some love to the Hoosier Hills Food Bank again. We had a great year last year.
I was gonna ask, that was in my notes because I'm like, well, you did that last year and I remember that, so I didn't know if you were doing that again this year or not, and I didn't want to bring it up without you saying it.
Well, man, that's the problem. Is it's Christmas card production is always one of my favorite times of the year, but it's really labor intensive, largely because I'm terrible at graphic design, largely because it's a production, and I put some effort into it. And always try to step it up a little bit. This I just realized last night. This is going to be the 10th year I've been doing these stupid things. So finally,
I don't have one. Done. I usually have one close by. I have one on the refrigerator right now. I was going to pull one out for the fans. I have one on the refrigerator. I was like looking because I usually have one back here in the studio too, but I think it's since I moved, it's not been put back up yet. But yeah, I can't wait to look forward to that. And we'll make sure we get the information out about donating to the Hoosier Hills Food Bank.
They need it more than ever. And I know we said that last year coming out of the heels of the pandemic, but this year there's still a lot of families struggling. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And it's something that really highlights what I love best about this fan base, because they are some of the most compassionate, caring people in the world. And it literally brings me to tears just thinking about the compassion and the generosity of Hoosier Nation. It truly is what it's all about. So excited to get that going again this year.
Yep, looking forward to it, man. We'll get on that next week as well. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
We'll catch you then. Beat Wisconsin, fellas.
Indiana, we're back with more Indiana Sports Speed Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration or just a relax. Frozen.
I thought you were frozen. Yeah, I looked at it. I was like,
I know it. He did not. I don't think Kitley turned IU down. He was just waiting for.
It wouldn't. He may have turned IU down. I'm sure he was offered. So
well, I think he already knew. I don't know that he was offered. I think he already was probably already in talks with Texas Tech.
Yeah. Did someone say he's an alum of Texas Tech or something? Is that why? Okay.
Yes.
That's what Keegan said yesterday.
Yep.
Zach Kitley.
Yeah, all right, that's what I'm going to talk about, Kevin. I don't know. I can't complain about the hire. I like 2 years ago when they hired Nick Sheridan.
Yeah.
And because it was, I knew it was a terrible hire. Why was it? I don't understand. I couldn't have been the only person that knew that.
Well, it was DeBoer that recommended Sheridan, remember? He said he's ready and stuff, so blame DeBoer.
Yeah, it is kind of his fault. But what's he going to say?
Yeah.
You know, you're in that position. You can't not recommend a guy for a job because, hell, he could be a head coach someday. And, yeah, it's just it's a situation.
Yep.
It's a situation. Saw Woody last night. Is out at the coach's show.
Did he go out there?
Oh, yep.
How come you didn't invite me?
You're invited anytime.
How come you didn't? You could have bought me dinner.
You didn't come up. You didn't show up.
I think I was busy. I had a lot of crap to do yesterday. I got a lot of crap to do today too, actually. I listened to the show. I did. I listened on Facebook Live. Yeah, I watched it.
I have a card for you, by the way.
A card?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
I'll tell you later. Financing over 48 months and $0 down. Or how about a brand new 2021 Honda Passport? Also 0% APR financing over 48 months and $0 down. Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Hope you're having a good day. Kevin Brockway with me from CNHI Papers. Indiana basketball takes on Wisconsin tomorrow night as they travel to the abyss for Indiana basketball. Traveling to the Kohl Center is like traveling to a black hole. Not won there since 1998.
Yeah, that's right. And you talked to Charlie Miller yesterday. I heard he was part of the last team that went up there and won the game.
He was the last winner.
Yeah. Yep. I'll be making that long, slow drive, cold drive, I guess, up to Madison tomorrow, 6 hours. And
oh, you're going up?
Hooking a right on in Bloomington, Illinois, right? That's how I usually do it, and go through beautiful Rockford, Illinois. The Rockford Files. Remember that show?
Oh yes, Jim Rockford.
And whenever I think of that, I always think of that in the theme song. And remember the answering machine. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you for everything you got.
half the people listening don't know what an answering machine is.
I know, right? Or the Rockford Files. Yeah, that's an old school reference. But
Yeah.
but no. That it should be interesting to see what they learned from the first road game, right, and how they carry that over in the second road game. And really, it's been last two games, two kind of sluggish starts for Indiana too. They're going to have to get off to a much better start, I think, in this game in order to, because they could really get the doors blown off if they don't, come with that sense of urgency in the first 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah, especially on the road against a team. Well, the
first ranked team, yeah, that they're facing.
That and Wisconsin plays at a slow pace, so I don't know if getting off to, because you always want to get off to a good start, but I don't know if this is the game that kills you as badly, because the score ends up at 52-54 in these games a lot.
I remember 2 years ago with Archie when they went up there and they got down by 20 in the first half, and it was just over.
Well, I'm not talking about getting down by 20. Yeah, you get down by 20 to a team that doesn't allow 50 points a game, it's over for you. You're done. I meant down 5, not 20. Yeah. That's a whole different deal there. No, you can't get down 20. But I don't think this team is. I think they're stronger than that now. But they haven't had a lot of road games, like you said. They've had just getting introduced to that, so they're going to have to get toughened up. And the Big Ten will definitely do that. So we'll see.
Yeah,
going to the Kohl Center is going to be as tough of a road test for Indiana as you can get, I guess.
I remember, it was interesting what Mike said about the first half of the Syracuse game. He said, I thought we were so out of character. I thought we played scared, which I thought was kind of interesting in that first half of that Syracuse game. And I think he kind of backtracked on the coach's show, and he said the 1-3-1 was really what threw them off. But yes, Wisconsin will throw some, Wisconsin will throw some defenses at them that'll be different, and they're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to adjust quickly. And I thought the encouraging thing about the Nebraska game was, Trace didn't have his best game, and Nebraska was taking him away. Another guy stepped up, be it Tamar Bates in the first half. Race Thompson was really active on the boards, and he played well. And yeah, you're not gonna get 20 or 30 points from Trace every night. So on the nights when you don't get that, and he doesn't get going, and teams take him away, they're going to need other guys to step up and perform. And I thought that was the encouraging thing about the Nebraska game, and they battle back with their defense.
Yeah, Indiana is going to have to watch out for your boy Johnny Davis. He leads Wisconsin in scoring at 20 points a game. So he's kind of their A guy.
Brad Davis, hasn't he been around forever? This is like his 17th year or something, or what?
That's what I was thinking. I think he's 29 or 30 years old. I'm kidding. But he's averaging 16 points a game, and he'll step out there and shoot from behind the perimeter as well.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and they were one of those teams that you thought like might take a step back along with Iowa in the Big Ten, and they haven't. They've played pretty well, and they're coming off the win against Marquette. They beat Houston, which was a really good win. So they've got the system that they recruit to, and they've got the Wisconsin guys that buy into it and they believe it. So it's going to be tough, particularly on the road, going up there in the Kohl Center and pulling that one out.
And this is Wisconsin's conference opener. They haven't had a conference game prior to this yet. So Indiana has one under their belt. Not that really matters. It was a home game, a home win against Nebraska. So Wisconsin has been playing Wisconsin basketball so far this year. Nothing different than what we've always seen. They don't change, man. They stay the same. It is the same style year in, year out, the same type of player year in, year out. And you're going to have to that's an advantage they have, is they have so much continuity that it just makes it a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, and Greg Gard, certainly from Bo Ryan to Greg Gard and what they've built in the last 15 or 20 years, it's been it's been impressive in terms of, the sustainability, and the year in and the year out consistency. It's just a matter of, getting over the hump again, the big one, which, Bo Ryan came close to back-to-back Final Fours about 5 or 6 years ago, but couldn't quite get over that hump.
Yeah, the shooting has come around for Indiana, so that's something that's a positive going in to Wisconsin, that if it's going, it can carry them if they're if they're on, if you can get Miller Kopp going, if you can get Parker Stewart going, Parker Stewart, I can't get over the numbers. I mean, he's shooting at 49% basically right now.
Yep.
Like 21 of 43, I think, on the year, which that's not a thousand. He's not putting up 1,000, but he's putting up enough per game. And I think that he's just going to continue to get more and more comfortable in that role. And he's just a lethal weapon.
He's leading the Big Ten in 3-point shooting percentage. And he's a guy that, they are getting more.
Can you imagine saying that after what has gone on with Indiana over the last few years, that they have a player that is leading the Big Ten in 3-point shooting?
Yeah, but this is part of Woodson's blueprint, right? This is why he brought in the shooters. This is why he brought in Parker and Miller Kopp. And I think the thing about Parker, too, is he's starting to get more assertive. He's starting to hunt his shot, I think, a little more. I've noticed that compared to early in the season where he was a little tentative, letting it fly. Now he's shooting the ball with confidence. He's going out there, and he's kind of letting it rip. And his 3-3-pointers in the second half were really big. Nebraska was making a little bit of a run, but I thought those 3-3-pointers he hit in the second half of that game against Nebraska were really important in terms of, keeping that lead manageable and allowing Indiana to hold on and get that first Big Ten win.
Well, just to give you an idea, last season, Indiana finished 11th in the Big Ten in 3-point shooting. 11th. And they were number 10 in effective field goal percentage, number 11 in scoring offense. It's night and day offensively what they have going right now. So that's going to allow them to be in virtually every game they play.
Yeah, but it's far from a finished offensive product. I think, right. Mike Woodson is, certainly the turnovers, there's still stretches where they're a little sloppy. I think, Mike is giving them more freedom and they're kind of getting used to that. But with that freedom, sometimes they make those plays. Sometimes you'll see Xavier Johnson make a lead pass that's ill-advised. And, Miller Kopp, who we were praising, it's so funny that Alex Bozich on the Zoom call was talking about how great he was turning, 9 assists to 3 turnovers all season. He has 4 turnovers in that game on Saturday. It was kind of like the kiss of death. But it was, they're just those little things, the decision-making with the basketball. But it's still a new group, and it's still, there still has to be some cohesion here. We're only 8 games in. What you're hoping is that by February and March, that ball movement becomes more crisp, and you're turning the ball over less, and you're creating more scoring opportunities through the motion and through the screening to get the offense to where you want it to be. But this is a team that, Mike even admitted early in the season, the defense has had the offense. And I think that's how they're going to have to win going forward, is just, playing really hard-nosed defense and, winning those 60-50, 70-60 type games.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Davidson from Wisconsin dating Tyra Buss, Indiana's former women's basketball player.
How about that? A little love.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
There you go. So there's that. I guess they're engaged. So there you go. They're actually engaged, my man. So engaged, be married. Congratulations to them. But I hope there you go. So little IU connection. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Why not?
But,
the Big Ten breeds love. In all shapes, in all forms, yes.
Well, she won't have to change colors for anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Both the same thing. But but it's going to be a stern test for Indiana. If they could find a way to win this game on the road, well, number one, this would vanquish. Indiana has not won in the Kohl Center since 1998. We mentioned that. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's just a ridiculous stat for an Indiana basketball program. Let's just be honest. I don't care. We're not talking about Duke or anyone else, and it would still be ridiculous if it was that long and you had that many opportunities. And you got a group of guys that couldn't care less about those numbers because they don't know about. I mean, somebody may tell them, but it's just a ridiculous stat. And I'm not saying it ends this year, but that has got to stop.
Well, last year they took them to overtime, if you remember. That was kind of a crazy game. That was a crazy game last year up there. It really was. And That was during the pandemic, so we weren't up there. But it was kind of a wild game that went down the stretch. And who was the point guard last year? The really good player made some big shots in that game for Wisconsin. Yeah, trying to remember his name.
I don't remember his name. He was probably 30 years old. Last year, they were older than the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. Their average age was older than that of the Chicago Bulls.
But, they were a team that I think had a lot of high expectations last year and kind of fell a little short and was disappointing. And I think they did win a tournament game, right? They beat North Carolina, but they got ousted in the second round by I believe it was Baylor. I think I was at that game, actually, covering that game. Baylor beat them, and, Baylor went on to win the national title. So not much shame in that. But, Micah Potter, remember, he was a big guy last year. Nate Rivers, those guys are no longer there, so they don't have the same bigs. But Johnny Davis, like you said, has really stepped up and has become the offensive force and the go-to guy for that team.
Yep. All right, we got to take another break, man. Kevin won't be with us when we come back. He's got to take off. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
To seeing you send you and safe travels up to Wisconsin tonight.
Yes,
tomorrow. To seeing how that, or tomorrow rather. My bad.
One day.
But we'll talk to you again, my friend.
All right, sounds good.
We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration. Well, I wish I didn't think you'd be going up to this.
To Wisconsin.
Yeah.
He just dropped out. I don't know that he meant to do that right there, but he did.
Yeah.
If you're able to do this segment without me, that would be great, because I've got to catch up on a lot of stuff that I've been trying to catch up on the past couple of segments.
I got you.
But if you do need me, that's fine.
Do we have any clips?
No, there hasn't been anything new.
Sorry, was there anything else you want to say or no?
What's that?
Was there anything else you want to say or no? Because I cut out.
Well, I forget what were we saying?
Something about Wisconsin and him going up there.
Oh yeah, I did. If I'd have known you gone up, I may have gone up.
There you go.
When are you going up?
I'm leaving at like 9 in the morning, probably 8, 9 in the morning.
Oh, you're going up tomorrow, and when are you coming back?
Thursday, yeah.
Staying spending the night. Yeah.
Yeah. What I usually do for the road trips, yeah. I'll drive the day of and
have fun driving up to Scottyville. I'm not sure if the weather's going to be appropriate, but
yeah, I don't know is it going to be a snow tomorrow driving or no? Hopefully not. I have to check the forecast.
I know down here, not specifically where I'm at, but a little bit north of where I'm at, they're expecting a little bit of snow.
Okay. All right, I got to run, guys.
All right, brother. Thank you, sir. How much time we got left, John?
You'll have, when we come back, we'll have about...
Right now. No, right now.
A minute. A little over a minute. $30 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and bring the commercial back in.
Hey, this is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. TheHoosier.com is where you'll find complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers, as well as coverage of the Big Ten. Simply go to TheHoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also catch Indiana Sports Beat Radio there each day at your convenience, or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Tuesday, December 7th. Oh, wow. December 7th. That's the day of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So salute to all the servicemen who unfortunately lost their lives on that day. Walt Bell, supposedly the new offensive coordinator for Indiana. No official announcement has been made. And I don't expect any type of press conference this week, to be honest with you. And that's a little odd in and of itself. But that just tells me they're waiting for some other things to happen. What kind of offense does Walt Bell run? He's an up-tempo kind of guy, which that I like. He was at Florida State and did a good job with the passing at Florida State. As a matter of fact, in some other previous articles, Bell says his offenses are closest to what North Carolina's Larry Fedora brings to the table. He says he plays much faster than Fedora, but his offense is still built around the run game. So, but he throws the ball a ton to be built around the run game. The biggest thing they was taken away with the Bell wants to keep things as simple as possible for the quarterback. It's about giving the quarterback plays that allow them to take advantage of certain matchups on the field. It's going to be interesting to see what he does bring to this offense. Tempo is something that I just was begging for last season. When you have a team that is not overpowering the other team, is not able to impose their will, then you have to find ways to get your own advantages, and tempo is one of those ways. And I never understood why that didn't happen. It was beyond me. But that's another story that unfortunately Coach Sheridan now no longer with Indiana. Some comments coming in. Let's see. Forrest says Nebraska is going to surprise some teams this year. Northwestern as well. Nebraska, I think, will. Nebraska's playing hard. They played hard against North Carolina State in a 4 overtime loss. They played hard against Indiana on the road. If they can play hard like that on the road, they're gonna be a lot better basketball team. Tim points out that Trace Jackson Davis second in the Big Ten in scoring at 21 points per game. Forrest asked, what's the over-under on Davidson flops tomorrow? Is he a big flopper? Haven't paid attention to that. But, yeah, it's the changes are coming for Indiana football. And that's why that there's been no official announcement in regards to Walt Bell. I think that there might be another change coming maybe, but we'll see. Could be two. We don't know. I think Indiana's kind of behind, which I hate to say doesn't surprise me a little bit here, but they're behind. I don't think that they were able to get the guys they wanted. Losing, and let's talk about losing Josh Bell. That's a hit. That is just a hit. I truly think that kid is going to be special. It's a shame that they were not able to keep him, but I was a little surprised that they were able to get him, to be honest with you. And I always, the whole time, I'm like,
as the season was progressing, I was like, why would he come to Indiana now? So you can't blame him. It's sad the way it works out. Indiana travels to Wisconsin tomorrow. Last night, Coach Woody had his basketball show. They did talk about the Syracuse game, and he did mention they were expecting the 2-3 zone, 2-3 zone, 2-3 zone. He said it's always what he said. It may have been the first time in Boeheim's history they came out and they switched it up. They played the 1-3-1, and they weren't prepared for that, and it took them a bit to get acclimated to it as they were able to get back close into that game before losing. But that's okay. Those are learning lessons. Now, I'm not sure how often they're going to see a zone, that type of zone, but you might see it from time to time, so you have to be prepared for it. You never know when a coach is going to pull that out and put that on, especially if they know it could work. But we'll see. Let's see. Indiana women's basketball destroyed Penn State last night. Yeah, I was watching a lot of that game. That first quarter of that game, Penn State was playing so hard. It was a tight game. And then I left to go to the coach's show and was watching it when I got there at Southern Stone Restaurant. And Indiana just went up, and they ended up winning they were up by 30 the last that I saw. So, but they're a good ball team, and that's what good ball clubs do. Sam pointing out a big high school basketball weekend in Winter Garden. IMG got beat by Sunrise Christian, then took revenge on Mount Verdi by 1 point the next day. Jalen looked great. So there you go. Sam, keeping an eye on the recruits for us. Yeah, a lot of tough basketball. And then, of course, you got basketball going on here at Indiana. This weekend. So it's all going on. It's happening, babe. It's happening. Does Indiana's streak of losing in Wisconsin, does it end? Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Alabama just went out to Seattle and beat Gonzaga. I mean, Alabama traveled across the country to Seattle. There is no way I would have bet anything on Alabama beating Gonzaga in Seattle last night. Would not. There's no way you could have gotten me to do it. But yet, that's what happened. And that's a hell of a win. You talk about a resume builder on the road beating Gonzaga. Yeah, that's a win. And look what that does. And I talked about Iona earlier, having knocked off Alabama. What does that do for Iona? I mean, people can think what they want about Rick Pitino, but I will tell you this. That SOB can just coach basketball, period. He's just one of those guys that can just coach basketball, period, and coach it very well. I don't know what they're doing right now as far as record, but I would say it's not bad. Put up their whole schedule. Let's see. They won. So there they were 4-0. They were 5-0. They were 6-0 after beating Alabama. They lost to Belmont. And then they barely lost to Kansas. 96-80, not barely, but 96-83. Then they beat Marist. They're beating the tar out of teams. They beat Rider 80-54. They next play Yale. So this is a team that's probably going up in the NCAA tournament. Iona, the powerhouse, that basketball powerhouse. It's what happens. Good coaching. My point is good coaching, period. Doesn't matter where. Good coaching. A good coach is a good coach. You can go to Iona and win. pretty damn good coach. Mike Woodson, I think, is a good coach. I think Indiana is going to be continuing to turn around. And like I said earlier, one of the things I love about him is just doesn't get rattled. He's been there before, got the T-shirt, and then some. He's just a calm, cool, and collected cat. Two decades of NBA play, man. That'll calm you. And Indiana is very fortunate that Scott Dolson had the foresight to go the route that he did. I think he has put Indiana in the best position possible to have success in basketball. Football, we're going to see how that goes. But right now, it's basketball season. That's what people care about. And let's be honest, at Indiana, basketball is the engine that drives the train, without question. Sam thinks that they could beat the Badgers at Whiskey. You just have to get out of their own way. Well, of course, that's generally the case. But also, you've got to give Wisconsin credit. They're a very defensive-minded team. Always have been, always will be, ever since you can go back 30 years and how it's been. This year for them, I don't even know their record, to be honest with you right now. They started off beating St. Francis, then they beat Green Bay, and so they played all the little teams. They had a nice win over Texas A&M, 69-58 early on. They lost to Providence as a ranked team. Then they beat number 14 Houston, 65-63. I remember that game. They beat St. Mary's, who's a good team. Edged Georgia Tech, and they got by with Marquette, 89-76 in their last contest out. So tonight, number 22, Wisconsin is hosting Indiana at 7 o'clock. And they've got Wisconsin to look forward to. Ohio State to look forward to on the road this Saturday. And then they've got a couple of non-con games sprinkled back in. I don't understand, why does the Big Ten not just put these two games in front of this conference schedule? What's the purpose of having two conference games, then going back to non-con games? I don't, just for two. I don't get it. You can't schedule those two games within the confines of the conference schedule. I kind of don't get that, but obviously, whatever. Maybe it's just because it's recently that the Big Ten has added those extra games. But we'll see. What do you think about tonight's outcome? How's it going to happen? What's going to happen? Of course, we'll have, or tomorrow night. I keep saying tonight. It's tomorrow. Right? Right? Oh, that's right, John. So Tim says Bell and Allen both served at different times at coordinators under former Florida State and South Florida coach Willie Taggart. Yeah. I don't know what that does. Willie Taggart has not had a ton of success. He's kind of bounced around a lot. He's had a lot of good jobs going from Western Kentucky to South Florida to Florida State to Oregon in a short period of time. So I'm not sure if that shows anything, but we'll find out. We'll see. We've got plenty coming up on the docket tonight for just basketball, period. Are there any other Big Ten games? Let's get to that and find out. Where is my sports clip? Here, stop.
In the Big Ten, all we have tonight is Michigan at Nebraska.
Yeah, I know there's only one game in the Big Ten, unfortunately. Oh, my computer is slow today. Top 25 games, You've got number 10 Kentucky playing. No one. Southern University. You've got number 13 playing Texas Tech. That could be a something to watch. Kansas is hosting UTEP. Number 8 Kansas. Number 16 USC hosts Eastern Kentucky. Number 6 Villanova travels to Syracuse. So they're going to be in the Carrier Dome. And number 12 Arkansas hosts Charlotte. That's just your top 25 games. There's plenty of other games to watch. Tons and tons of games out there. So those are just your top 25s. Michigan, Nebraska. Is that the one you mentioned?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Michigan, a 6.5 point favorite.
Wrap-up time.
On the road. This is going to be an interesting game, though. Michigan on the road at Nebraska. And Nebraska's at home. So we'll see what Nebraska has. It's going to be a tough one. I'll be checking that one out. That's at 7 o'clock. Hey, thanks again to everybody. Thanks to Mike DeCourcy. Thanks to Kevin Brockway. Thanks to John, the producer. Most importantly, and Chronic Hoosier. But most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you all, we have got no reason to be here. We're back tomorrow. So tune back in. We'll be here for you. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.